We have an American holiday today called Thanksgiving. It's not unique to us. America is not the only one that celebrates Thanksgiving. Many other countries actually celebrate a day similar or have a day like Thanksgiving where they pause and give thanks. Countries like Canada, Japan, United Kingdom, Israel, Brazil, even Germany, they all celebrate some form of Thanksgiving. And there's lots of other countries that celebrate a day of thanks, of course, but it may not be an official holiday like it is here in the United States. Just a brief history on Thanksgiving. For us, it goes back to the Pilgrims of 1621 when they began to celebrate their harvest festival with the Native Americans here as well. The festival became sort of a religious as well as a social celebration with the pilgrims feasting and playing games and then drinking as well. But it wasn't until 1789 when President Washington issued a proclamation on October 3rd of that year, naming November 26 as a day of sincere and humble thanks. And then again in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued a proclamation on October 3rd of that year, making Thanksgiving a nationwide holiday to be celebrated annually on the last day of November. And in 1941, Congress set a fixed date for that Thanksgiving. So you're probably asking yourself, why am I talking about Thanksgiving on a podcast about relationships and trauma, other than the obvious day that my podcast comes out on Thursdays, and Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving? Well, I thought it would be important to talk about Thanksgiving and broaden the context of that conversation as an act of giving thanks, which means we're actually grateful for something or some things in our life. It's also an act of appreciation and reverence that demands that we acknowledge what has been done or given to us that we may not have earned ourselves. And this act will actually improve our outlook on life. Being thankful, giving thanks, having gratitude for things that are in our life, people, monetary gifts, money, jobs, things that we have that imbue our life with purpose and meaning. It takes some sense of humility to be able to acknowledge and look at those things that are in our life, not because we've worked hard and earned them, which certainly may be the case, but especially those things that we didn't earn. And so being grateful helps us remember that we're also benefactors of multiple generations that have struggled, fought, and persevered to bring us to where we are in this day and age. So we're going to talk about 5 ways to be grateful, with the understanding that it helps us broaden our perspective and it can shift our mindset as we face our struggles with our relationship and with our traumas. Welcome to Trauma-Free Relationship. I'm Tom Philp, your host, and as a therapist, I've spent over 10,000 hours helping couples work through their trauma so they can repair their ruptures, heal their wounds, and communicate from a place of wholeness and connection. Let's get started. Okay, as I mentioned in the opening, we're talking about being grateful for things, having an attitude of gratefulness and thankfulness. And this seems to be a good reminder of that when we can look around at our lives and be grateful for the things we have in it. I don't think that's always something that we carry within us. Some people have more of a natural disposition, a glass half full, if you will. Many others have sort of a glass half empty. So we have these colloquialisms that we use in our culture to represent how people can have an outlook on their life. I think taking a day and pausing and recognizing that there are things we have in our life that we didn't necessarily earn or work for, but we are just benefactors of, is really important. Because as much as we are a individualistic society here in North America, especially the United States, as much as we like to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, so to speak, I think we also have to recognize that no one, and I mean no one, is self-made. Everybody had some kind of help along the way. And that's not to diminish that you may have worked very hard to have what you have in your life, but everybody has received some kind of benefit, regardless of how smart they have been or how hard they have worked to achieve that. So with that in mind, being able to recognize that we are benefactors of certain things in our lives that we should give pause and give thanks for, I think is very fitting on this day. So we're going to talk about 5 ways to be grateful on this particular day, where we can just pause and look around at our life and sort of try to cultivate a spirit of thankfulness. So the first one I would recommend that I have seen be very powerful with a lot of people is keeping a gratitude journal. And I think this is great. You can do this on your phone. You could do this in a more formal way if you wanted to, where you actually have a pad and pencil or something like that. But I think being able to jot down, whether it's for a week or a month, or maybe you do it for an entire year, but jot down a little few things every single day that you are grateful for. Maybe it's the fact that you can drive to the nearest gas station and put gas in your car. Not only just that you have money to do that, but also that we have the convenience of being able to pull into almost any corner and be able to pump gasoline into our cars. Maybe it's the fact that you're able to go into an office and work inside and sit at a cozy desk on a day when it's very cold and snowy or rainy, or, the weather would prevent you from being able to earn your living outside. Or maybe it's being able to work outside and work with your hands and build something on those beautiful days when it just makes you feel so good to be alive. And on the end of the day, you can stand back and you can look at how you brought something into creation that wasn't there before. Maybe it's keeping a gratitude journal of how grateful you are to have children that you struggle to have for so long, and what these beautiful little people or person is in your life, and how grateful you are to be a mom or a dad if that had been a struggle for you and didn't come as naturally as maybe it did for others. Maybe it's looking back at how grateful you are for the love you have of family and friends and a spouse, and maybe recognizing that you don't always act or deserve that kind of love, but you have been given that love anyway. And it's nothing you've particularly earned. It is something that has been given and is a gift, and trying to be appreciative of that. So I think keeping a gratitude journal is a great way to shift our perspective sometimes from the things that aren't working so well for us, or things that we're constantly striving for that have not arrived in our life yet, in order to see the things that we already have. And actually, there's quite a bit of research on this. Keeping a gratitude journal increases your happiness and positive mood. It reduces your stress and anxiety. It can improve your self-esteem, and it can enhance your resilience. So there are real emotional, mental benefits to being able to keep a gratitude journal. So that's the first one that I would really recommend. The second one I would recommend is being able to express gratitude to others, telling the people in your life how much you appreciate them. Even sometimes a simple thank you or heartfelt letter can make a huge difference in their lives. I know it's a lost art these days, but writing somebody a letter, just mailing it to them, having them receive that and open it up with the sole purpose of just letting them know you are important to me and you are a benefit in my life. My life is better with having you in it than it would be otherwise. That can profoundly change someone if they receive that kind of letter. I remember growing up, my father was always involved in my sports in some form or fashion. Sometimes he would help coach if he could. And I remember one time another friend of mine's father sent a letter to my father and one other coach, thanking them for being a coach, thanking them for how they poured into their son and all the other kids that they did by just showing up and being a positive role model and presence in their lives. I remember my father reading that and getting emotional receiving that letter. This was completely unsolicited. He never expected it, would certainly never have wanted it in any way. He didn't do it for the things, but I remember seeing him get emotional. My dad was not an emotional guy, so it made a real impact on me just seeing the profound impact that letter had. So being able to express gratitude to others, I think, is a wonderful way to pour into other people, to remind them that, hey, I know day to day we can get caught up in taking care of the kids or, doing life, or I only see you on the holidays. I want you to know how special you are to me and how important our friendship, how important you are, how important our relationship is, however this person relates to you in that particular way, and reminding them that your life is better off with them in it than it would be without. Okay, another way is to meditate on gratitude. Dedicate some time to meditation, focusing your thoughts on the things that you are thankful for. This can really help cultivate a sense of peace and appreciation. So taking a few minutes, 5-10 minutes a day, and being able just to sort of meditate. Maybe there's a favorite phrase or poem or Bible verse that you really like, and it reminds you to have peace and to be grateful, I think is a really positive way to cultivate a sense of gratitude and thankfulness in your life as well. So spending a few minutes being able to meditate on the things that you have in your life, things that maybe are different from what you've earned, but things that you are benefactors of, can be a really great way to cultivate that in your emotional life as well. Number 4, embrace vulnerability. This one I know sounds a little bit strange, but stick with me for a minute. By learning to be more vulnerable, even though it involves risk of being hurt, actually it increases our strength and determination and our resilience in our emotional lives. As Brené Brown says, she's an author who talks a lot about vulnerability. She says vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. Now, that's a really powerful quote, and there's a lot packed into that one sentence that she says are the benefits of being vulnerable. But I really think vulnerability causes us to let go of our protection, to move into places and do things that seem a little bit risky, whether that's letting ourselves be more vulnerable with our partner so that we can actually internalize feelings and behaviors that our partner does to love us well better, as opposed to protecting our traumas so fiercely, which is what our central nervous system wants to do. But being able to figure out, how can I face that I fear the most so that I can begin to overcome it? How can I embrace my vulnerability with my friends and let them know that I love them? Hey, it's not really a cool thing for guys to say I love you very much to each other, but what if I was vulnerable enough that I could let my friends know I appreciate you. I appreciate this lifelong friendship that we have had. And I just want you to know that. And so I think embracing vulnerability is a great way to push our boundaries of what we're comfortable with at times, not in a way that throws us into the deep end where we're drowning, something that would further traumatize us. I don't mean that. Not unnecessary risks. But I'm talking about being able to push ourselves and living at the edges a little bit more often of what makes us uncomfortable so that we can then be more grateful for those things that we have in our life. So as a way to sort of cultivate thanksgiving and gratefulness and gratitude, think about what's an area where I could be a little more vulnerable in my life and show up in a little more vulnerable way so that I can actually notice and cultivate that sense of gratitude and gratefulness. So the last one, number 5, practice gratitude walks. Go for a walk and notice the beauty around you. Pay attention to the sights and the sounds and the smells of nature and appreciate the simple things in life. I'm fortunate enough to live near a park, and the last couple of weeks I've been trying to exercise more. I'm not perfect at it. I try to have some self-compassion and not beat myself up for those days where I don't get out and walk, but I'm trying to get more exercise because I know it's healthy for me. And I'm telling you, there were a couple of days that were absolutely perfect. And I just, when I came back from my walk, not only did I feel better, but just being out in this beautiful day with the cool wind on my face, walking around the track at this park. And it wasn't long. I walked maybe just a couple of 3 miles, but just doing that and being out in the sunshine. And I was listening to some music in my podcasts my AirPods and just that act alone of being out in nature made me feel so good. And it wasn't just that I got the exercise, certainly that was a part of it, but just being able to be out among the trees and the sunshine and the air was able to sort of rejuvenate me. It always makes me feel wonderful. When I go for a hike in the woods, or we have it's really more of a hill, but we call it a mountain called Turkey Mountain. When I go for a hike at Turkey Mountain, it always makes me feel great afterwards. Just being able to walk in the woods, hear the sounds of the birds, see the sunlight break through some of the trees. There's something deep inside of us that still connects us to nature, even though we kind of live our lives more enclosed now. But I just think it's so important to be able to get out and be able to walk in nature and begin to appreciate that connection that we have. John Muir says, in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. Now, if you don't know who John Muir is, he was sort of a naturalist, and he sort of spent a lot of time in natural parks and things like that. Especially in California, Yosemite National Park was what he was most known for. But he was sort of a naturalist and just was able to almost create poetry out of what he was able to experience in the natural parks. Another one I really like is Walking is Man's Best Medicine. This is by Hippocrates. And so I like that too. I think there is a lot of medicine, a lot of healing in being able to get out and walk and think and reflect. And so being able to have gratitude walks where we get out and maybe we don't plug into music or listen to a podcast. Nothing's wrong with that, but maybe we just sit with our thoughts as we're moving our body and see what emerges, what comes up for us when we begin to move our body and pump our heart rate a little bit and elevate the heart rate so that it's pumping our blood a little bit faster as we're moving. What exactly emerges for us in our thoughts and feelings during those times? Because it can also be a time where we can work through some of our traumas and just notice what sort of things come up for us when we begin to have these gratitude walks. Do we tend to focus more on the traumas and the pain and the hurt? Or can we shift our mindset and focus more on some of the positives that have come out of our life and come out of some of our lived experience? Hey, I hope you enjoyed our little talk today. I just felt like this was a good opportunity to talk about gratitude, to talk about how we can cultivate that in our lives a little bit more and figure out ways that we can broaden our perspectives, because at least maybe one day a year, it is good for us to pause and reflect and to pull ourselves back and to get a broader view of our life and to say, there are good things in my life, even in bad times, even in hard times. There are good things in my life that I also need to acknowledge and to be grateful for. Thank you so much for listening. I am grateful for you. I am grateful that you continue to reach out and let me know what you like, don't like, what you'd love to hear more of. And I'm just wishing you all the very best on this particular Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to Trauma-Free Relationship, a podcast for the healing of attachment trauma. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or our website at traumafreerelationship.com. Be sure to look for our next episode on your favorite streaming service.